Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday, good people. My name is Janae Brown, and I am the founder and senior publisher of Open Book Publishing. And as you guys know, that we help storytellers package their professional experience, their creative genius into page-turning published books that inspire and motivate their readers. And every Wednesday, as you guys know, if you've been rocking with us, we host Dear Authors. And Dear Authors is a lunch and learn hosted on Facebook and LinkedIn Live to give an insight of what it's like to publish a book with perspective and examples and tips from service providers, publishing professionals, and also other published authors. So this episode of Dear Authors is a much needed conversation. And I know I say that all the time, y'all, but this conversation is really much needed. We're going to talk about when life happens, when you are going through the process of writing a book, publishing a book, even after you have done so, life still be lifing, right? Let's just cut it to the chase. Life still be life. And so what do you do? How do you navigate that? So today we have my good sis, Miss Kescha Wilson, who's going to join in today for our conversation. Hey, Kescha, how are you?
I'm doing absolutely amazing today.
Good to see you, sis. I'm so excited to have this much needed conversation. And so before we get started, Kescha, share with us who you are, what you do, all the dopeness.
Yes, so I am Kescha Wilson. I'm the owner and CEO of Design Her Queendom, which is a personal development company and wellness brand that focuses on helping high performing women and resilient women leaders and executives reprioritize themselves while they're managing demands of career and the responsibilities of home.
Yeah,
So that's what I do. I am affectionately called your Global Ease Ambassador.
yes, ma'am, Global Ease Ambassador. And you also are a published author.
Yes,
Hey,
ma'am.
author. Hey, author. The
Yes.
power ease. Can you show it again for the people?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Here
The
we
power
are.
of ease. Let's
Yes.
just say that together. Ease. We
Yes.
all need some ease in our life. So, as you guys see, Miss Kescha Wilson is the person for this conversation with her personal development business. Okay, that is so key because there's a lot of intention around professional development, but not as much on personal development outside of like going to therapy, right? And so, with your expertise, you've created and you've written the power of ease. So, share with us, like, what was it like? From starting to write something so necessary, right? What was that like writing and publishing The Power of Ease?
So it was an amazing process. It was a stretching and expanding process as
Mm,
well.
yeah.
And it was very personal
Mm,
because this was not only just a story that I'm sharing, but it's my lived experience.
mm-hmm.
And so I think I talked to you about this before, that I came to this work and to do this work through my book. Um, this is my second time around.
Yeah.
And so at the end of 2019, I decided that I was going to write a book, and it was about the same topic.
Mhm.
And life hit,
Yeah, as
right?
it does, as it does.
Life was lifing back in
Yeah.
2019, right? And I did not publish that work. Um,
Mhm.
however, I went through a process. I took myself through a process. I learned a lot during that process. At the time, I thought I was actually experiencing a relapse and burnout because of what was going on in my life. I found out otherwise. And then through that process, I began writing down what I was experiencing. And I realized that it was additional part of my blueprint
Mhm.
for this business and the work that I do. And so I had to give myself some grace for not necessarily finishing what I said I was going to do at the time, but give myself the grace, the permission, and also the space to be able to explore what was going on within me, as well as look at what was going on in my life at the time. I hired a mindset coach at the time, And
Mm,
I ended up going through an entire process to help develop and understand what I was experiencing. And that also
yeah.
became part of my blueprint. And so I ended up sharing, and a program came out of that. It was a short 30-day intensive that led into additional 30 days. And that became additional part of the work that I do. And
Yeah.
it started to help women really accelerate coming out of burnout.
Mm,
And so that is how I got on the path. And so I had been doing that for a little while, gaining momentum, and life hit again.
wow.
And so, which it always does, it's
Yeah.
never going to be, just always, a ride where you might not have any bumps or bruises or take a detour. And
Mhm.
so at the top of last year, I was gaining momentum in my business, and my mom got sick. She lived out of state alone. And I brought her to my home, and turns out that she never was able to return home to live by herself. And so she became a part of my household, and
Yeah.
I became a care partner to her, which changed so many things when it comes to thinking about a business. Now, sandwich generation, I have two children, a number of different things. But in the midst of many diagnoses, selling a home, and all of that, I was brought back to my original intention was to write the book, finish
Yeah.
the book. And so what I realized is, I don't know if you've ever heard of Glennon Doyle, but I heard her say one time that when she wrote the book Untamed, that she actually wrote it twice, because the first time she wrote it very tamed. And so
Mm,
I felt like that was this process for me. That first version of that book would not have been this book. It would not have been the power of ease, and it would not have had the perspective that I've had since that process. And so I'm grateful for everything that I've gone through.
yeah.
None of it was void, even the challenging and stretching parts of that. And so,
Yeah, that's so fun. And I'm glad you said that because you said a lot of things that we're going to get into today. But
mhm,
one of the things that you said that I think is necessary for authors to know is the willingness to let your book write you. I think a
mhm,
lot of times, if you do it right, you're gonna pre-plan your book, you're gonna outline your chapters before you like really actually start writing. And we talked about that a lot in episode 2. We were talking about writing and editing. But then there's this experience where the book starts to write you, and the things that occur in life become nuggets and gems for you to include and incorporate into your writing, into the story, into what you are going to be using, which is your book, to help transform and inspire other readers. So I'm so glad that you mentioned how you started and you stopped, and then you got a whole blueprint that really
mhm.
made what you were probably going to do in 2019 and what you did do in 2020, 2021, 2022 so much more fruitful because
Yes,
the book wrote you.
uh, ma'am. All of the things that you just said. Yes, absolutely. And it was also a guide for me to refer back to as I was going through and experiencing life myself. These became teaching points for me to refer back to, because this is my lived experience. And I also, I go through this curriculum myself. And so and it keeps me close to the work. It doesn't mean that I don't have challenges. It doesn't mean that I got it perfect and going on. Honey, we know differently, right? Because a
Right.
lot of times when you are becoming a master of this work, this type of work, you are practicing, you are living this thing out. You're
Yeah.
living this thing out in your life, and you may come up against this in multiple different iterations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For the last, I would say, um 6 to 8 months, 6 to 9 months, it seems as though every 30 days my life has been flipped upside down.
Yeah. And
And
she's not lying, y'all. Like I know her personally. She's not just saying this for dear authors.
yes.
Yeah.
And so it requires me to continue on the work. I cannot do it in integrity otherwise if
Right.
I'm not doing it
Mhm.
myself. And so sometimes it comes becomes very challenging and sometimes painful.
Yeah.
Most people think that healing and ascending and all of these wonderful things on the other side, it's amazing, but it doesn't mean that you don't go through a lot of muck as
Yeah.
you're going through it. And
Mhm.
especially if there has not been a trail blazed before and you're the one that's going to be blazing,
Yes. Yes.
sometimes there is not a lot of foresight or things that you can think about in advance. You're just going through it
Yeah.
and documenting it and then turning that into life lessons and curriculum.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
You definitely have to embrace the grace to be the first, right? When
Mhm.
there is not always a model, because this space and this lane was created for you, but at the same time, like you said, it keeps you close to the work, which is, I'm so glad you said that, because dear author, you do not have to just write one book. You can write multiple books, and then you can leverage that book to do so many other things, and staying close to the work helped you to understand the needs of your readers community. So you're gonna journey, good people. Like,
Yes.
be prepared, just accept and embrace. Life is gonna happen. And so, Keisha, something else that you mentioned that I wanted to talk about was mindset work, right? You said that
Mhm.
you got a mindset coach, right?
Mhm.
And so in that, you're able to unpack the depth of your burnout and any other things that you just may have been experiencing. So, how important is mindset work when you are writing and publishing? How important is grace, right? And then how do you develop mindset? Like, we talk about mindset so much, and I'm really tired of
Mhm.
using that word, but like,
Mhm.
what is it? How do we develop that on top of all the things we got going on?
I know we talk about fixed mindset and growth mindset a lot in different venues that we're in,
Mhm.
but I was just looking to excavate what were my blind spots. What
Mhm.
was I not? Because I had done a lot of work on myself up until that point and understanding what I was experiencing, but I was looking to what were the touch points that I still had not uncovered, unlocked. And some of those were very simple things. Like I had not fully forgiven myself
Mhm.
for being in the position of being burnout in the first place.
Oh wow, that's
And
big.
so I had done the work, but holding this small portion of myself that says, you should have known better.
Mm.
You should have known better. You've seen this before. You
Yeah.
might not have language for it, but you've seen this before. And I had an evolved version of that. And
Mhm.
so of what I had seen in history in my life and what I've seen along the path. And so but just the simple act of saying, girl, how could you have known?
Yeah.
How could you have known was freeing for me. And so, and then that also allows me when I'm dealing with women who have that same grudge against themselves to
Mm.
say, hey, no, you couldn't have known better.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you did, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
And
Right.
it's okay. And you don't have to get hung up on that part because this is where you are and it's going to yield something beautiful and amazing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so we just got to get through this process.
And that grace is so necessary,
Mhm,
because the book does write you. I mean,
mhm,
I say this all the time. So I wrote in finishing up in the editing phases of Publish Like the Pros, and it's been driving me crazy, if you're just being very frank. And it makes absolutely no sense to me, because all I do all day is what? Publish books.
yes.
So like, why is this so much? But what's happening is it's keeping me close to the work. It's
Mhm.
gonna be
Mhm.
like entangled with the word how to create a pick it. And it's necessary because we don't just want to write books. We want to
Mhm.
write books that are going to transform and inspire our readers. And you are not going to write and publish a book that's going to transform and inspire a reader if you are not transformed and if you are
Ma'am,
not inspired. True or true?
this is very true. This is very true. It's so many things because I didn't know what the book. I knew that I had poured out into
Mhm,
this book. And then some of this book we'll talk about got changed at the was I was divinely led to take almost 3 chapters out of this book. I've never shared that with anybody. To
mhm.
take 3 chapters out of this book, change the complete ending right at the end of editing. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I was like, we were going in this direction, and all of a sudden it was a sharp left. And to do that within a 6 week window,
yeah,
divinely led to do that within a 6 week window. And it was just life transforming, but I didn't know what was going to be the response. And so here I was on pins and needles after I released the book and wondering what the first reader was going to say. And when I heard girl, I was
confounding.
just getting a text message like girl. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, it emojis.
Mhm.
And I understood what that meant.
Mm.
Because one of the purposes of me writing this book was the things that I had read previously, they didn't resonate with me.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The language, the experience, I wanted it real and raw.
Yeah. You went in where you
I didn't want it to be sugar coated. I didn't want it to be about all the things, the meal plans and the productivity hacks and all of that thing. I wanted real, honest conversation, and this is what I felt like I gave the people.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I feel like the responses, the reviews that you got from people who do and don't know you, right? Check
Mhm.
the Amazon, they're like ridiculous. For the people who do and don't know you, but got to know you through your work in this book, to me, it's a testament of being connected to your reader, right? And I think a lot of times as authors, we're thinking through how to make a book great, and
Mhm.
I feel like the only way to do that is to really identify and get very, very clear about who your reader is and what do they need. And a lot of the things that they need have been, to your point, divinely downloaded into you, and being and going through whatever you were going through when your book was writing, you staying close to the work is
Mhm.
helping you to produce and then to publish what the readers need.
Mhm. And then when I was looking for resources, this is what I needed. I wanted somebody to tell me exactly what it was.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted them to say, okay, here is how I got out of this situation. This is
Mhm.
what I was experiencing. This is what people won't tell you. I
Yeah.
feel like this is the book that you really want to have the table talk about.
Mhm. It needs to be at everybody's book club so that we
Right.
can just sit and just be like, "Child,
Mhm.
okay, can we talk about it?"
Mhm.
That's what the book does, but that's what your reader needed, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
important for us to realize that your reader tends to be who you were or who you're becoming.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so accepting the journey when life is happening is going to make a world of a difference within your book
Mhm.
in a whole nother way. So Keisha, can we talk about the shift, right?
Mhm.
How did you go from 2019 to 2022? And you talked about having a mindset coach. You talked about forgiving yourself, right? You
Mhm.
talked about staying close to the work. But when did it shift for you? Like, it's okay and I can still do this. I'm still qualified. I'm still worthy. I'm still an author. What I have to say still matters. When did that shift come for you? What was that like experience when you shifted, which is like, I still have the right to do this?
Um, when I started thinking about, I think I always thought I still had it,
Okay.
and I don't think that I felt like I didn't have the right.
Hmm.
I had just as much right as anybody else when you start reading it, lots of things that's out there, right?
Yeah.
But I think giving myself the grace to not necessarily have to stick to a deadline based on my life circumstances and what I was experiencing, giving myself the room to say, okay, you can pull back. You're still going to do this thing. It doesn't have to look like you thought it was going to look.
Yeah.
And so when I felt like I was divinely said, hey, here is the 6 week window. Write, publish, and launch this book in this 6 week window and put it out there. And I didn't have all of the fancy things that I would have loved to have, behind the scenes, but it was intimate. It was amazing. And I got the work done.
Hmm.
And the work is out there and people are connecting to my message.
Yeah.
And that was the point. I said, if one woman can read this book and be changed, can see herself in it, and do something with the strategies in this book and change her life, it is enough.
Hmm. It's enough.
Hmm.
It's enough. I like what you said when you said it was about getting it done.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
about getting it done because my experience personally with peers, with clients, is there is a very strong fear of imperfection
Hmm.
that we call a spirit of excellence.
Hmm. Yes.
Okay. Can
I
we
know that language.
can we just, call a spade a spade? And I think that we have to be willing to acknowledge that there's life after this book. We can make it pretty later, not to produce crap, right? We still want to put out a valuable product, but how
Mhm.
do we get to a mindset when we're just willing to just let it be done and stop focusing on being perfect?
Yes. So I think it's also a heart set, right? Because
Mhm.
we focus a lot on mindset, but the heart of what you want to do, when you think about, I wanted to share this message so that one woman, just one, now it can be thousands, hundreds of thousands later, but just one woman can see herself in this story and change and transform her entire life. And if I was hung up on how I presented myself, then that would have never happened.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Listen, I got on a phone call with someone before I released this book. I got on a phone call with someone who was struggling, and I knew that she was in this zone where she could be in trouble.
Mm.
And that I felt that she was already in trouble. She just didn't know how close she was.
Wow.
And so when she picked up this book and then she collapsed,
Have mercy.
and it was, I still get chills. And she read the introduction of my book, which describes in detail of what my experience was.
Mhm.
And I got a message, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is what happened to me. This is exactly what happened to me. And to me, it would have been selfish.
Mm.
It would have been selfish for me to withhold this work
Yeah.
until I thought it was good enough, it was in excellence, and all of those things. Honey, there are some things that can be changed, that can be perfected in the end. Like I said, I didn't have all of the things. I had an amazing editor, Dr. Boyce.
That's
I
right. We
listen,
love
I had
Dr.
an
Boyd.
amazing editor. I had some amazing coaches, Tanya, all of those people helped me along the way to birth this project. But it was left up to me to decide that it was okay to go out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But thinking about that, withholding somebody else's transformation or connection to a story, I can that's not unacceptable for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's Keisha, per the usual, right? I tell people all the time, Keisha's my sister for real, right? And y'all can't tell from this silk press, but she always snatching my edges, right? Keisha got a way, honey, of helping you see the thing real clear. How long, and it's just a simple question. How long are you going to hold up somebody else's transformation because you're scared?
Hmm.
Because you have the desire to be perfect, because you are questioning if it already is good. How long are you going to hold up somebody else's breakthrough? Because there's power in your book, there's transformation in your book. And so, like you said, it's heart set. And we talk a lot about mindset, but not
Hmm.
heart set. How do we as authors develop the right heart set to be able to do what authors do while life is still happening?
Hmm.
Because you had to get a heart set that I'm going to make sure that the Janaes of the world can live life with ease in spite of life lifing while life is lifing for you.
Yes.
Seriously, be on the
Very ironic.
how do you do this? How do you keep the main thing the main thing? How are you able to be so willing to serve when life is happening?
Well, when I had my experience, my rock bottom moment, which I describe in my book of
Mhm,
burnout, which was essentially I collapsed in my home
mhm,
with two young children fast asleep. My husband was out of town. And um, when I collapsed that night, there was a covenant made with the Creator
mhm.
that if I got out of that situation, that I would never be there again,
Yeah.
and that I would share whatever needed to be shared in order to help someone else who was in that situation, because I needed this book then. It may have been a woman who was too afraid to tell her real truth before, when I was going through my process, and it wasn't there. And so I wasn't going to allow that to happen. Now, it may have taken me years to be able to understand what I had experienced, to have language for it, to go through my own healing process, to gain different skill sets, and now to be able to synthesize it or put it down into uh, a palatable form where people can understand what I've experienced and the nuggets that I've gotten, lessons I've gotten along the way. So I'm essentially living
Mm,
what I teach. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about living what I teach in real time. Like I said, I when back in March, when we went to the retreat
mhm, mhm,
back in March, and I declared some things that I was going to do. Listen, the spirit told me the night before I went home, rest.
mm,
And I said, okay. I was going to do a couple things, for work, and I heard rest. And when I got back home, I mean, it hit the fan.
Mm.
Everybody in my home was ill.
Yeah.
Emergencies, blindsided, nothing that I could have planned for. I mean, in the ER, in the just
Yeah.
it was just life.
Mhm.
And I had to do what I needed to do, but I also did not revert back to old habits, which would have been to push through, to not, acknowledge my feelings, my emotions, what I was experiencing, that it was challenging, and all of those things. And I also raised the flag as a leader to be in integrity. I raised the flags to let know that people who were leaders to me, let them know that I was experiencing some of the greatest conditions that are a part of my burnout formula. These
Mm.
are the things I was experiencing them all at one time, not just one or two. I was experiencing every single one of them that could have sent me in burnout again.
Yeah.
And so during that process, I had to slow down and, first of all, do almost triage and go through crisis mode and figure out who needs the help, and then also activate help for myself. And there was a different level of help that was needed. I had to 10x the amount of support that I needed in order to support my people through what I was going through. Not only was I doing that, I was coaching women, one in particular who was going through something that I have never experienced in my life. One of the most challenging things. So not only am I doing that, but I am leading people through their greatest breakthrough while I am simultaneously experiencing house fires
Yeah.
and bombs and explosions going off in my own life.
Yeah.
But in integrity, I activated what I needed to do. I used the same blueprint to put things in place to secure me as I walked through it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what the power of ease is. It's not about just reaching for something and thinking. It's during the meantime when life is happening. How are you maneuvering through that? What are you putting in place to support yourself as life is life?
So, can you give us some insight to that? Because you used a lot of vocabulary that I think we have to clarify for folks. You said your burnout formula. What is
Mhm.
that? What is a how do we 10x our support system? How do we and I love what you said about integrity too, because you talked about integrity in a very different way, which was honoring yourself and saying your mama's at the edge and
Mhm.
here goes my lifeline. So, one, how do we define what a burnout formula is?
Right.
Two, how do we 10x our support system? And three, how do we become self aware enough to know how to activate that so that we can do all the things that we are called to do, deal with life and write and publish these books? How do
Listen,
we
young
be
man.
Keisha when we grow up?
Listen, this ain't what you want. I can't believe this is not what you want. So here's the thing. I believe that every person, woman, has their unique burnout formula. Now, I detail what that is like in the book. Some of those components are behaviors and habits and traits that you have, plus roles and responsibilities, plus a thing that can potentially set off an explosion in your life. I call them oxidizers.
Okay.
And so the oxidizer in your life can be that thing that is triggering to you, that you know that is going to flip life upside down for you. And I believe that burnout is an event that
Mm,
happens.
okay.
So, and that event can be short lived or it can last over a period of time. And so, when you become connected enough with yourself and you begin to realize what are your individual stress things that cause you much stress and all of those things, and you begin to break down what your burnout formula is, then you can almost predict what are the under what circumstances will that I will be in that will eventually cause me to be there again.
Hmm.
And so one of those things for me is family. And it's usually closely aligned to your values. And
Okay.
so if something is going on major with my family and I'm holding a lot of roles and responsibilities like I do, and if I reach for, let's just say, a habit, that self-reliance, if I reach for the self-reliance thing where, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm gonna do it all by myself.
Talk
You
about it, Keisha. Seriously,
know,
because a
listen.
lot of people think that the go-to habit is I'm gonna have a glass of wine or I'm a
Mhm,
party. No, no, no. It
mhm,
is the interpersonal stuff. Like I can do it. It ain't gonna
mhm,
take me out. Are you
mhm.
serious right
And
now?
so when you have all of those things at once, then you can find yourself in a burnout event. And so how I there are many different ways that I teach on how to walk yourself out of that scenario. However, that was all going on at the same time. It wasn't just one person, it was everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody. And then me, going through a process myself, running a business and other people depending on me. But I have a team. I have established a team of people that help support me because I believe that leaders, this is one of the main, another reason why I wrote the book is because if you're the go to person, whether that's in your family, in your career, or you're known as the person who does this or who is accustomed to being resilient, who's accustomed to being overcoming and surviving and going through all of those things, there are very few people that can handle you and help you go through transition.
Amen.
There are very few people that can help leaders go through a certain transformation.
Indeed. Indeed.
Mhm,
Indeed. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because I don't think that authors realize that as you are writing and publishing a book, especially nonfiction authors, especially informational based authors, you are entering into a space of leadership.
mhm,
And there's going to be events that happen for you that is going to be at a very different level, a very different intensity, because you are called now to lead, right?
mhm,
And so you have to identify the community to help you maintain because nothing gets to stop. Right,
mhm,
you
mhm.
still are a mother, you're still a wife, you're still a business owner, you still
Yeah.
have clients, you're still a published author, you're still a this and
Mhm.
a that, and a big sister to Janae and a little sister to this person, and
Yeah.
nothing stopped because you were reaching your burnout capacity, right?
Yes.
And
Mhm,
so, can we talk about community, right?
mhm.
For leaders, for authors, what do we need personally that will help us maintain professionally?
Yes. And so you need a team. You
Hmm.
need a team, and you have to identify what is your greatest source or area that you're most vulnerable in.
Hmm.
And some people are always applying tactics, whether that's self care or, going to get a therapist. I believe that therapy is amazing.
Hmm.
But if your greatest vulnerability is physical right now, when it comes to burnout, it will not, you know, do you any good to be putting your energy into, you know, therapy at the time if your greatest need is in
Physical.
physical.
True.
And so I believe that you need to assemble a team based on what your needs are.
And that requires self awareness.
Yes. And everybody talks about contingency plans, right? But I
Mhm.
believe you need to have an emergency self-care plan.
Okay.
So whenever you have lifing you, is that you need to have people that you can call when the ish hits the fan. You need to be able to call them and activate them and have them in place to be able to support you through things like this.
That's say it again, an
Self-care plan.
emergency self-care plan. And how do we so you identify people essentially who
Mhm,
you're like, if I call you at this time, I need you to do X. Is
mhm,
that essentially what it is?
mhm. Yes.
Okay.
And so you will have those people, friends and family or people in your network that you can do that, but you also have professionals. So
Professional.
if that is a therapist that you have, a spiritual advisor, whether that is people who are holistic practitioners, things like that, whatever you need in your cadre of people in your wheelhouse, in your toolkit, then you need to be able to activate that. As I was going through that, I 10x my people, my team, and I began to tell them whether that was I visited them once a week or whatever, if that needed to be twice a week while I was going through that, whether that needed to we needed to go virtual several times in order to help me get through that process, then that's what I needed to do.
Wow, wow. And that's so good because life happens. It
Mhm,
doesn't stop. Like we always say, life be life in, but we still have a call. We still have a responsibility to write and publish these books so that we could be a part of somebody else's contingency plan or self-care plan because our book will serve as a resource for them.
mhm,
So this is Kesha, per the usual. I knew it was gonna taste as good as it felt, as good as it smelled. Because we need to. I think authors, people, individuals need to recognize that life continues,
mhm,
and as life continues, that doesn't mean that you get to stop the assignment, but
mhm,
you have to figure out a way to walk and chew gum,
mhm.
essentially in plain.
But the thing about that is sometimes we're so busy looking outward towards the people that we're serving that we don't recognize and connect to what the pace that we're supposed to be doing it. I understand that there are people waiting for me, but at the same time, I honor and I respect my process.
Yeah,
You can get this after I've gone through my process.
your
And
pain.
so, yes. And so I always like to stay close to that as well, because there is no giving it to you, eating out of the hand if I haven't gotten it for myself first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's good. That's good. And I'm glad that you clarified that because leadership does not mean not honoring and serving yourself.
Mhm.
That's
That's
not
the
what it
first
means.
service. That is the first service.
That's the first service. And that goes into you writing and publishing your book. That's part
Mhm,
of the book writing you is that
mhm,
first service. But
mhm.
Keisha, okay, because I told you you're not gonna make me cry. You do
We didn't
not
do this
take
thing.
it out these edges no more today. But I really appreciate this because life doesn't stop, and I think a lot of people like us both has had a passion and desire to write a book and haven't been able to complete the book because
Mhm,
life was life, right? And
mhm,
how do you do both? How do we balance what is an excuse and what's something that's really happening? How
mhm,
do we balance understanding we have to get this book out, but I got to honor and respect my pace? So I really wanted to have this conversation, and I'm so so glad that you came and you was vulnerable and you was transparent and you was Keisha, right? Because the world needed this, not just for authors but for everyone. So thank you so much,
Thank
Keisha.
you. Thank you for
Absolutely.
having me. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Keisha, can you tell the good people how can they connect with you? Where can we buy this book? How can
Yes.
we hire you to speak so you can start snatching everybody else's edges around
Come
here?
on, listen, bring me in. Bring me in for your retreat, your event, your office, your organization, your company, bring me in to talk about these topics, to talk about how to embrace more ease into your life, to leave exhaustion behind,
Yes.
and to embrace ease. I'm a living witness. I'm a living witness, and I still live out different components of that. I'm unlocking more ease as I go.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And that doesn't always look like ease in the beginning. And so
Yeah.
you can find me at designherqueendom.com. That is my website. And that's where you can buy my book, The Power of Ease, a blueprint for women leaders to put yourself first while managing a thriving home life and a legacy driven career. And men also buy this book, and they have applied these same principles. Okay, you can find me on Facebook at designherqueendom.com, at Design Her Queendom, and also on Instagram, Design Her Queendom, but on LinkedIn, Kescha Wilson, Kescha Wilson.
Yes, ma'am. Get Keisha in the room. You would never leave the same.
Yes.
I promise you. I promise you. Well, good people, as you know, I am Janae Brown, the founder and senior publisher of Open Book Publishing. And if you look below, make sure that you subscribe to our official channel on YouTube, where you can catch all the replays of Dear Authors. And also, we are available on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at OB Publishing or Open Book Publishing. Also, if you would like to connect with us directly, head over to our website at www.obpublishing.com. And as always, authors, we are here for you every Wednesday, same time, same place on Facebook Live at 12:15 for another necessary episode of Dear Authors. And so, good people, we wrap up each episode with the affirmation. I always have to give it, but I feel like he should have set the record straight for everything, child. But what I will say is, dear authors, allow life to write you, embrace life, and um don't focus on trying to be balanced. Just try to focus on being present and
Mhm.
taking life as life happens, to ebb and flow through life, and allow life to do what it's going to do, because that's going to make your book so much more fruitful, so much more credible, so much more integrous. And by the end of your writing and publishing journey, you will have something that you will be able to celebrate, that you know that you left it on the table, and you gave
Mhm.
everybody exactly what they needed, while also ministering to yourself. So
Mhm.
what I will say simply is, dear authors, it's okay that life is life. It's
Mhm.
okay. It is
Mhm.
okay. And that's going to make you a better person, a better author, and your readers a better people indeed. So that's all we got today, good people. That's
Amazing.
all we got today, good people. Again, we will see you guys same time, same place every Wednesday. Lunch and Learn on Facebook and LinkedIn Live at 12:15. You'll see us for Dear Authors. And until then, be well, good people. See you next week.